You know, when I came to Berlin, we met immediately and started listening together, and Hildur started sketching together, and that was really a very, very rich experience for me, you know, because as we were out scouting for the film and designing the film, Hildur was making music and recording with some of her players from the LCO in real time. So all of that was really informing what we were doing, and informing what we were doing in many ways, including this sort of inside baseball stuff that we really maybe shouldn't be talking about. But every character sort of has a tempo, and this was an idea that Hildur came up with really early on, which was that the character of Lydia Tár would always be walking to 120 beats per minute. Bum, 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 bum. And so she wrote this music to it. And so Cate, when she's walking in the film, she's always listening to Hildur in her ear. And so that's a very consistent gait for her. It's a very determined gait. Whereas another character, like the Russian cellist, Olga Makina, played by Sophie Kauer here, the young cellist in the film, she always walks to 60 beats per minute. So really, really specific work that Hildur was doing very early on, and decisions that had a gigantic, you know, hopefully invisible impact, but a huge, huge impact on the making of the film before we even got into post, which is highly unusual. Normally you get, you know, you say hello to whoever you're collaborating with at the end and start figuring it out. We were in, that was a first conversation, other than talking to Cate Blanchett. My second conversation was with Hildur.
I just thought it was so interesting to have a look at the inner workings of how it is to make music. As a musician, like the way that you are influenced by, for example, tempo, like your inner tempo and like your inner conversation that you're having with yourself, like during the process, which is as much as just like when you're, you know, walking around or picking up your kid from school, or in dialogue with other musicians, like how you talk about music, how you access it. I feel this is very this is such an interesting part of music, and probably way more than actually listening to the finished product. So I was very excited to get involved and have a dig into the kind of invisible elements, the psychological elements, and the kind of how music kind of, you know, creeps onto your skin, you know, which I think you can really feel also in the film. Like there's a lot of stuff that you experience in the film that you don't really perceive that you're seeing or hearing, you know, and it has a kind of effect on you. It really, you kind of feel like you're almost watching like a really kind of unearthly somehow, like, you know, and you're kind of just like get on the edge of your seat, and some what you're seeing on screen is something like very kind of, you know, natural and human, but somehow it's the otherworldliness of it that I find so interesting. The same thing with music, you know, you can explain what's happening in the frequency register of the notes that you're hearing, or you can explain the loudness or the quietness of the tones, but you can't really fully explain what happens to you when you listen to music, right? Like you can't really explain how music, you know, even if you close your ears, you're still going to feel the music. It's still going to transport you to a certain type of memory or a feeling, or even like, you know, a smell, or, you know, it's really, it can really transport you in such an interesting way. And I think that's, you know, the mystery and the beauty of music.
There's a trap, I think, when you make a film, and there's a dilemma for the composer often, which is how do you get in and how do you get out without getting caught, right? And in the case of this film, there was no way that Hildur would ever underscore this, because she understands what it is to be a music maker, to be someone like this, to be someone that's in process, to be somebody that's constantly in process. So it would be ridiculous to do something traditional. So the sonic space that she's dealing at, or whatever euphemism you prefer, the sound, the noise, the music of it, it's there throughout the entire film. And hopefully on a conscious level, you're not aware of it, but you would be in its absence. The advantage of being here with shooting, you know, and having Hildur nearby is, you know, for instance, the one piece of music that's, you know, that this main character, Lydia Tár, is working on, this piece that she's writing for her daughter for the Houston Symphony. That was the first piece of music after Hildur read the script that she sang, you know, and that's Hildur's voice in the film. Just to be able to have Hildur and Cate in concert with one another, and to be able to talk about what it is to compose and what it isn't to compose, and what people really think it is, and just like how people think what writing really is. You know, it's often depicted in this sort of very, has a conceit to it, but it's just sitting down and, you know, getting to it. So it was a highly unusual situation to be that forensic from the beginning, and to have that continuity together all the way till the end.
I think always when you're scoring a film, you have to kind of realize, okay, what is the purpose of the score? Like, what is the purpose of the music in the film? And in this film, it was very different from like a, you know, like a regular film, let's say, that's not about music. So obviously, you know, I wrote the music that she's writing in the film, so that's a part of her character, that's a part of the storyline of the film itself. And then there's the purpose of the score, which is other than her day-to-day life. And because her day-to-day life is music, and that's the, you know, the orchestra, and that's the kind of, that's the reality, you know, the purpose of the score is to be otherworldly and to be invisible, and to be this kind of invisible thing that seeps, and the audience will never, you know, they will never realize that it's there, but it's like, you know what, like 40 minutes of score or something that's creeping underneath.
Yeah.